today only on rhabdomyosarcomas. Yesterday we talked about these tumors, but today we will talk about rhabdomyosarcoma. And you remember that it's a tumor that mainly occurs in young patients, so we have always to take into account the consequences of our treatment in such a very aggressive disease. So, just to remind you that rhabdomyosarcoma represents something like 4% of all the childhood cancer. The median age is 5 years, and I have said previously that we have tumors in very young patients, 2, 3, 4 years of age, and tumors that occur in adolescents. In 90% of the case, this tumor is sporadic, so it means that we don't know why this tumor occurred. In 10% of the cases, it's genetic, so there is a reason, a genetic reason that explain why this tumor occurs in this child, but in 90% of the cases, we really don't know the reason why this tumor develops in this child. So when we are in front of the parent, we explain that we don't know how this tumor grows, but we don't know why. It could be in everywhere in the body. It could be on the hair, on the head and neck, on the cervical, on the thorax, abdomen, pelvis, and so on, limbs, and so on. So it could be everywhere, but we know that head and neck is the main primary, and 1/3 of the tumor concern head and neck sites. And here you can see an ear site, orbital one, a hand, a pelvic. This one looks a little bit like the one we have seen this morning. Limbs, primaries, and so on. So this tumor could be possible in every site. And as it's a highly aggressive sarcoma, it could rapidly grow. So most of the time, this tumor is represented by a mass, just like this, that lead to the diagnosis. What we will discuss this morning is the subtypes of rhabdo. You know that there is 2 different diseases. Even if it's called rhabdo, there is alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma and non-alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma. Today we call things like that. We can call alveolar and embryonal, but mainly we prefer to say alveolar and non-alveolar. Alveolar rhabdos are 1/3 of the tumors nowadays, and there is a specific fusion transcript that confirms the diagnosis. And this will be a very important thing. And the main subtypes of other rhabdos are called embryonal, non-alveolar, and we know that this subtype has a better prognosis, which means that we will intensify the treatment here and will give a standard therapy in embryonal rhabdos. You all know that this tumor is radio and chemo sensitive, so it will be include this treatment, chemotherapy and radiotherapy will be strongly included in the protocol of all the rhabdos in the child. So what we're going to talk is to talk about the value of the fusion transcript. I know that it's sometimes difficult for you to have this information, but you will see that it will be the most important information that we need when you are in front of a rhabdo. We'll speak about the new stratification for the next protocol that will start this year, the value of doxorubicin, the role of the maintenance, and if we have time, we'll speak about second-line therapy in such a disease. So, you all know that rhabdomyosarcoma is a Greek, ancient Greek. Sarcoma means tumor from the soft tissue. Myo means muscle, and rhabdo means strié, just like this, with some line like this. So when you look on the tumor in the hematoeosin staining, you may sometimes find tumor cells that resembles to a muscle. Here is a myocyte, but most of the time it's tumor cells like this, and with a small thigh like this. Okay, so this is, of course, the way to conclude at the diagnosis, but we all use immunochemistry, and immunochemistry is positive in main rhabdos. Again, desmin and vimentin means conjunctive lesion. So you don't know which type of conjunctive lesion, but it's conjunctive. It could be vessel, it could be muscle, it could be other things, but actin and myoglobin and eugenin are immunostimulating against muscle. So if you have a tumor, undifferentiated tumor with positive desmin and positive actin, you can say that it's a sarcoma and it's a muscle sarcoma. So muscle sarcoma in childhood means rhabdomyosarcoma. And 20 years before, it was the only way to set the diagnosis, to have the morphology and the immunochemistry. But as you know, in the 80s, the pathologists have described a new subtype of rhabdos, and they say, okay, there is the classical one with small cells like this, but sometimes you have some things like this, small cells in just like a nest, and this one looks like alveoli, and they have called this subtype alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma. And what has been very interesting is that alveolar sarcomas subtypes were totally different from embryonal subtype. They more occur in limbs, they were more frequent in adolescents, and many years after we found that in this subtype there is two specific fusion transcripts between 2 and 13 chromosome and 1 and 13. And after that, we have found that this alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma subtype has a very worse prognosis than embryonal one. This is an old study, was in Europe from the SciMT group, which was called MT89. And as you can see here, the overall survival of patients with embryonal rhabdos are here, and the outcome of a patient with alveolar rhabdo is less than 40%. So it was the first time, at this time, when we proved that this subtype of alveolar rhabdo was very worse, and that changed our mind, saying, in this case, we should intensify this subtype of tumors. But at this time, the only way to put the diagnosis was histology and immunochemistry. If you have some alveolar, you say it's alveolar rhabdo. If you have nothing, you say it was embryonal. But there are different other subtypes, and sometimes it's complicated. Yesterday we have seen a bladder primary with grafts like this, and it was a botryoid. Botryoid subtypes are more favorable and belongs to the group of the embryonal subtypes. So, and you may have the classical alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma, and sometimes what we call solid alveolar sarcoma. And this solid alveolar is small cells like this, and you don't have anymore the nest and the alveoli like this, because all the cells are together, joined, and you just see the tumor cells like this, and the conjunctive support here. But this alveolar subtype is a solid subtype, is exactly the same as the classical alveolar. So when you speak about a rhabdo, you should absolutely say this is a rhabdomyosarcoma embryonal, this is a rhabdomyosarcoma alveolar, without fusion transcript, because it will be very important. So here you have the embryonal subtype, here you have the alveolar one. And you can correlate some subtypes to the prognosis. So this solid variant has been recognized since 1992, and during the year we have changed our way to put the diagnosis of alveolar rhabdos. At the beginning, when we checked the old protocol, it was only 15% of the patients who had alveolar rhabdo. But more and more, the pathologists have been more skilled, have been used to identify the subtypes, and nowadays we consider that 1/3 of the rhabdo are alveolar rhabdo. And so because of course the pathologies have been better because we are using more and more immunochemistry, and of course because we all know that the fusion transcript can help to put the diagnosis of rhabdo. And what was interesting, it was the same in Europe, it was the same in North America. At the beginning, there were 20% of alveolar rhabdo. Now sometimes it's 40%. In the SIOP it was 15 and it's shifted to 30%. So it means that the definition of alveolar rhabdo changed during the years. So it's difficult when you speak about with a pathologist saying, is it a rhabdo, alveolar rhabdo? Yes, no. And they say, okay, I consider that yes, but maybe not, because sometimes the pathology, this pattern is sometimes difficult to confirm absolutely. If you have a typical pattern, it's easy, but most of the time you have small part here, and they say, okay, it's a small, tiny biopsy, I don't know, and so on and so on. So the definition exact of this subtype of alveolar rhabdo was a little bit challenging. What we have to understand once again is that we have a very active tool to help to this definition of alveolar rhabdo. Of course, it's cytogenetic and molecular biology. Just to remember that we have found that in the tumor cells, there is a specific fusion transcript between the chromosome 2 and the chromosome 13, or between the chromosome 1 and the chromosome 13 again, that explains why this disease occurs. And here, when you have such a fusion transcript, you imagine that a gene just here stimulates an activator factor here that leads like an oncogene, and that is responsible for the malignant transformation. So when you have such a fusion transcript between these two chromosomes, or between these two ones, you are sure that your tumor is alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma. This type of abnormalities is only seen in alveolar rhabdomyosarcoma. So we have patient who has an embryonal rhabdo on immunochemistry, on morphology. We have patient who has alveolar rhabdo with a fusion transcript, so you are sure that you have no doubt it is an alveolar rhabdo. But in between, we have patients where the pathologists say, I think it's an alveolar rhabdo, but you don't find the fusion transcript. So the question is, in this gray zone, when you have a pathology alveolar rhabdo, but without any fusion transcript, what is the diagnosis? Is it an alveolar rhabdo, a real alveolar rhabdo, or is it an embryonal rhabdo? Should we have to treat them as a high-risk patient, or could we treat them as a standard-risk patient? So this was the question, and just to go into the conclusion of many studies, this is a study done by the French, UK, and Spanish and subgroup, where we have analyzed 3 groups of patients. The patient with alveolar and the translocation in the tumor cells. So we were sure that the tumor were alveolar because they have the marker, they have the molecular marker. The patient with an embryonal diagnosis of rhabdomyosarcoma, because the pathologists say it's a typical embryonal pattern of rhabdomyosarcoma, so there were no doubt. And this group where the pathologists say, I think it should be an alveolar rhabdo because you have pattern with alveolar, but we don't find the specific fusion transcript. So the question again was, what about this group? We know that this one is poor. We know that this one has a better prognosis, but this one, what should we do with this 20% of patients? And when we have done many analyses, if we go just on the conclusion, this is the event-free survival or the overall survival. So of the 3 groups, this is the patient with alveolar rhabdo and transcript positive. And the prognosis, as expected, is very, very poor. So you will see the next protocol, if you have an alveolar and transcript, will treat this patient, even if the tumor is localized as the metastatic one. So all these patients will be in the metastatic group and the very high risk group, because as you can see, the prognosis is very poor. The embryonal rhabdo without any transcript, of course, were here in gray, and the prognosis was a little bit better. And the alveolar with negative transcript fusion behave exactly just like embryonal. They are here in blue, they are here in blue. So it means that if you have the transcript, you have a poor prognosis. If you haven't the transcript, whatever the pathologist say, even if the pathologist say, for me it's an alveolar, the only thing important is the presence of the absence of the transcript. So in the next protocol, in the COG group, in the EPCG group, to go into the conclusion, the only thing that we will look at is the presence or not of the fusion transcript. And if the pathologist said, for me it's an alveolar rhabdo, you say, okay, thank you, but what is important for me for the specification will be the presence or not of the transcript. This was a retrospective analysis, and we have done other analyses showing that this group of alveolar rhabdo without transcript had exactly the same biological signature than the embryonal one. So probably it's embryonal tumor. They are located in the same place as embryonal tumor. They have the same biological signature. They have the same behavior, and they have the same prognosis. So it's probably, we have to consider it as the same disease to be very clear. So we have done this thing again in a prospective way in our EPCG group, and we have seen that this group of patients who are called alveolar rhabdo without transcript represent something like 1/5 of the patient, 22%, and seen exactly the same thing. When you have a fusion transcript, very poor prognosis, and if you have an alveolar transcript, alveolar pattern without any transcript, your prognosis is similar as embryonal. So the best thing to try to discriminate poor prognosis patients and better is the presence or the absence of the transcript and not the classical pathology. So many different groups have done this. I've seen that today a new paper from the COG showing exactly the same thing. And what we have discussed is this is the next, to be honest, the ongoing stratification in the North American group. Before it was the histology, and nowadays it's the fusion transcript. So poor prognosis patient or patient with fusion transcript, and we have analyzed this thing in different way. Just to show you, this was a paper when we tried to analyze patients with alveolar rhabdo and nodal positive lesion to see how things appears. So we have analyzed all the patients with alveolar rhabdo and nodal involvement, and this is 10% of all the group of the patient in our protocol. And just to show you, you know, this arm, it was the arm H, the last arm of the EPCG protocol, alveolar rhabdo with nodal involvement at diagnosis. These patients were supposed to receive 4 courses of IVADO, surgery on the primary, radiotherapy on the primary in the lymph area, 5 courses of IVA, and 6 months of vinorelbine and cyclo. In this group, we already knew that this tumor was a poor prognosis, so we decided to give the maximum of therapy that we can give. Even if we don't know if it changed something, but because you remember that the classical treatment is 9 courses of IVA. 9 courses of IVA is the classical treatment for rhabdo, but in this case, we say, okay, this group is very worse, has a worse prognosis, so we give all what we can do. 5 courses of IVA, 5, and so on. And what we have seen is that the prognosis is still poor, not better than in other previous protocols, but once again, the only thing that discriminates this group is the presence of the absence of the transcript. So it means that the prognosis is quite better in patients with without any fusion transcript than with fusion transcript. So it's another way to prove that the only thing in the, that is very discriminant in terms of classification is the presence of the absence of this fusion transcript to set up the diagnosis of real alveolar prognosis. And as you can see here, the prognosis is not good. Overall, is less than one child out of two is cured by the disease. So as you can compare this patient with alveolar, real alveolar, I mean with the transcript, and nodal positive has an overall survival of 30%. It was this curve, 30%. And metastatic rhabdo has an overall survival of 30%. Is the reason why in the next protocol we will treat both groups in the same groups. Before that, they were considered as localized tumor, but nowadays, as the prognosis is very poor, we decide to intensify the treatment. It was the case in the COG, they have already done this before, 10 years before. And when we have done many different analyses in our database gathered something like 1,000 patients to analyze the role of the fusion transcript, the role of the pathology, the role of every group, and so on. And what I wanted to show you is the conclusion of this work. This is the classical stratification in the previous PSHD rhabdo. You remember that there were subgroup, there were histology, there were high-risk group, risk factor, the site, the nodal presence, and the size and the age of the patient. And what we have changed here is that we have considered that some groups were more favorable than previously. So we have switched bladder prostate to favorable group. So nowadays, bladder prostate primary or not an unfavorable group is favorable. And biliary primary is also a favorable group because we have done some sub-analysis showing that biliary patients with rhabdo has more than 90% of chance to be cured. So here we have changed the group of favorable sites. Be careful about that. So our favorable site is orbital as before, genitourinary primary including bladder, prostate, head and neck, and biliary. So this is the first change in our our classification. The other thing that we have changed is the size of the tumor for pharyngeal primary. It's a little bit complicated to analyze each time, but as we have seen that it do not influence things, we have decided to include all pharyngeal, even the small one, in the unfavorable site. The other thing that we have discussed is to include in the worst prognosis group all the patients who has a very worst prognosis. So the group H will include all the four high-risk for patients, so a metastatic one. And this is what is the new, because before that there were only one group here. So now there is, in the very high-risk group, patient with alveolar N plus positive rhabdo and metastatic. So this is only one group, very high-risk group, and this patient will have will be included and receive first experimental therapy and so on and so on. And the other thing that we have changed is the present of fusion of the transcript. So the definition of alveolar will be only based on the biology, not on the morphology. So we will only consider alveolar subtype the patient who has a rhabdo with the presence of the fusion transcript. So our protocol, our FAR RMS protocol is the name of our protocol, will be a little bit different than the previous one. So when you analyze some subgroup, you have to be careful because there will be some changes that shows that it's more accurate on the data we have. So it will be the same thing. You will analyze the risk of your patient according to all these different risk factors and say, okay, this patient has a low risk situation, I will only give VA. This one has standard risk, IVA. This one is high risk, 70-80% only of survival. So we will try to increase the therapy and so on and so on.
This week maybe translate for the lesson.
Khi bác sĩ dẫn dắt thì hiện tại hay theo những cái kết quả họ phân tích qua các nghiên cứu của nhóm châu Âu về Harvard và Sarcoma, họ có khoảng gần 1.000 bệnh nhân. Thì những cái thay đổi thì có thứ nhất là về họ chia ra thành 4 nhóm: nguy cơ thấp, nguy cơ trung bình, nguy cơ cao và nguy cơ rất cao. Thế thì cái điểm thay đổi đầu tiên là ở nhóm nhóm C là nhóm nguy cơ trung bình. Thì ở đây cái vị trí thuận lợi ở đây họ đã đưa vào thêm 2 cái. Thứ nhất là trước kia mình có hốc mắt này, có hệ GI là tiết niệu sinh dục. Thì ngày xưa tiết niệu sinh dục thì mình chỉ có là cạnh tinh hoàn và vaginal, tức là âm đạo. Thế thì bây giờ họ sẽ thêm, họ đưa vào đây là bladder prostate, tức là bàng quang và tiền liệt tuyến cũng là một vị trí thuận lợi. Ngày xưa cái này là không có thuận lợi. Và thêm một cái nữa là đường mật. Đường mật họ cũng thấy là có tiên lượng tốt, thế thì đã thay đổi trong cái vị trí thuận lợi là có một sự thay đổi. Tiếp theo thì ở nhóm D là họ thấy rằng bệnh nhân và parameningitis tức là có xâm lấn ống bằng não, mạch bằng não, hoặc khối u trên 5 cm thì có tiên lượng không thuận lợi, cho nên là họ đã đưa vào cái nhóm nguy cơ cao và thay đổi cái vị trí D này. Và cái điểm thứ ba nữa là ở cái nhóm nguy cơ rất cao, ngày xưa thì họ chỉ thấy là cái nhóm mà có di căn thì là vào cái nhóm nguy cơ rất cao, nhưng bây giờ thì khi chúng ta có cái kết quả vừa rồi, tất cả những bệnh nhân mà có fusion, tức là có chuyển đoạn và có di căn hạch thì có tiên lượng có sống còn, tỷ lệ sống còn cũng là khoảng 30%, tức là như các bệnh nhân nguy cơ cao, nhưng nguy cơ rất cao các bệnh nhân di căn, cho nên họ đưa vào đây thành một nhóm, nên là nhóm rất là nguy cơ rất cao. Và như chúng ta đã thấy thì bây giờ cái biến đổi đột biến có chuyển đoạn gen giữa những sắc thể số 2 và 13 hoặc là số 1 và 13 tạo thành một cái gen, và cái gen đấy là gen tiền ung thư, có biểu hiện như gen tiền ung thư, cho nên đấy là một cái những bệnh nhân mà có cái chuyển đoạn gen như vậy thì có tiến triển rất là ác tính, và cái đấy đã thay thế toàn bộ cái giải phẫu bệnh. Ngày xưa ở đây của chúng ta là yếu tố chiến lược giải phẫu bệnh, mô bệnh học là u sắc tố cơ vân, thể bào thai hay là thể alveolar, thể nam. Và theo như cái điều trị này thì theo như cái phân loại nhóm này thì các cái bệnh nhân nhóm nguy cơ thấp sẽ điều trị bằng 2 thuốc là VA, những bệnh nhân có nguy cơ trung bình thì sẽ điều trị 3 thuốc là IVA, và những bệnh nhân nguy cơ cao cũng như nguy cơ rất cao thì sẽ là điều trị phải tăng cường hơn và những cái điều trị mới.
So when you speak about a rhabdo, you should say a rhabdo with fusion of alveolar, non-alveolar, iris blue, side, nodal. You should explain everything, not say it's a rhabdo, but because of course this disease is not the same at this one, it's not the same at this one, and of course you will adapt the treatment. So what about staging? We have discussed, and the radiologic group in the FDCG has done some work about the definition of lung metastasis in such a protocol. And just to conclude that we have done, radiologists have done some analysis to try to discuss what about very small nodules in rhabdos on the lung? Sometimes you have a CT scan with very small nodules, and so the question was, if you have no more than 4 nodules that are less than 5 millimeter, or 1 nodule isolated between 5 and 10, do you have to consider these images as metastasis or not? So they have performed some analysis, and you can see that we have 1,000 patients, and they have reviewed more than 300 of CT scan to see that some patients had this very small nodules that was called indeterminate nodules, 67 out of 316. And when you analyze the outcome of this patient, the outcome was exactly the same as the patient who has no nodules. So in the future protocol, we will consider that if you have no more than 4 very small nodules, or only 1 nodule between 5 and 10, you can treat this patient as localized disease. Maybe it's small metastasis, maybe, but the prognosis is exactly the same, so we don't have to intensify the treatment if you have very small lesions. Once again, in rhabdo, if you have a doubt, you should do a biopsy, resection of the lesion. If you have no doubt, because there are many very large lesion images, of course you will consider this patient as metastatic one. But if you have any doubt, you should do the correct staging. And sometimes we are used to do a biopsy or atypical resection of the lung to be sure that it is or not a metastasis. But this paper shows you that if you have very small lesion, you can consider that this patient could be treated as localized. I don't say or localized, maybe it's small lesions.
The question is if we have
Two nodule between 5 and 10, so that means equal metastatic, right?
That means equivocal. So sometimes you have to discuss with your radiologist, of course, to say, does it look like metastasis or not? And of course, the appearance of the images, if they are solid, if they are on some situation, could be in favor of metastasis, could be in favor of benign lesions. And sometimes you don't know, so you have to do the surgery.
Con ra lại scan này. Về vấn đề di căn phổi thì chúng ta thấy là bởi vì tiên lượng của bệnh nhân di căn là rất là xấu. Thế thì cái xác định các tiêu chí như thế nào là một cái di căn phổi thì chúng ta thấy là họ đã phân tích trên hơn 1.000 bệnh nhân và họ thấy là chia ra có 2 cái tiêu chí. Trước kia tức là không có dưới 4, từ 4 trở xuống các cái nốt tổn thương dưới 5 mm hoặc là một nốt tổn thương từ 5 đến 10 mm. Thì những bệnh nhân như thế này thì sẽ có tiên lượng như thế nào? Thì ở trên 1.274 bệnh nhân khi mà họ review lại cái CT ngực ở 316 bệnh nhân mà có, thì trong trường hợp có 249 bệnh nhân là không có tổn thương nốt và 67 bệnh nhân thì có cái gọi là cái tổn thương nốt nhưng mà không xác định, tức là có 2 cái tiêu chí những cái nốt nhỏ như vậy, thì họ thấy rằng cái tiên lượng cái sống sót là như nhau. Thì cho nên có thể trong những trường hợp này là những trường hợp di căn gọi là rất là những di căn nhỏ microscopic, cho nên trong những trường hợp này thì những bệnh nhân này sẽ không được đưa vào nhóm, cũng không đưa vào nhóm điều trị như là mạnh như là nhóm nguy cơ cao. Thế còn trong những trường hợp mà các cái khối u và các cái tổn thương phổi mà rất là rõ ràng, bên chẩn đoán hình ảnh kết luận rằng đấy rất nghi ngờ là một tổn thương di căn, có thể bác sĩ phẫu thuật sẽ phẫu thuật và khẳng định đấy là di căn, thì trong những trường hợp đó chúng ta sẽ xác định là bệnh nhân ở giai đoạn 4 có di căn phổi.
So what about therapy? What is new? If you have a look on the different protocol by the past, we know that this is the UK experience, but of course it was SciFMT studies and so on, because UK belongs to the European group of rhabdos. So This was during the 80s. This was the first protocol, the second one, the third one. And what we know is that since 80s, the prognosis of the rhabdos has quite been exactly the same. So we have discussed to give alternative strategy to try to increase the survival of the patient. And so is the reason why we have built so many protocols. And once again, you remember that there is 3 groups: the North American group with the COG experience, the SIOP MMT group, which means Europe, French, UK, Spain, and which was called SIOP MMT group, the German one and the Italian one. And nowadays, it changed in 2005. You have 3 different groups. The COG, North American, is the same. The German one, who is called CWS, and the European Metastatic Sarcoma group, which gather Italian, UK, France, Spain, Netherlands, and so on and so on. So, just to understand who is who, the German group is not in the BCG group, it's a PT, but it's like this. But the German group has exactly the same strategy as the European BCG group. So when you compare the German protocol, it's exactly the same as the UPCG. There are slight changes, it's variable and not the value, but it's exactly the same. Yesterday we said that the North American has a different strategy. They gave more surgery, they gave more radiotherapy, so they gave other drugs and so on. So we can compare our experience in Europe to the experience in North America to see if there are some differences and say, okay, this is better for you in your case, so we'll take your philosophy, and this is better in Europe, so we'll follow this European strategy. So it's interesting because overall the strategy, the outcome is the same. We treat exactly the same number of patients and cure them exactly the same way, but we have 2 different ways. More therapy here, less relapse, less therapy here, more relapse, but could be solved by second line therapy. So it's interesting to discuss with the North American group. So once again, your BCG group is 14 countries, more than 100 of different pediatric oncology centers. And we have defined, and you know, these 4 groups, and in the future, these 4 groups will be a little bit different, but we have defined this group according to the outcome and the survival expected of this patient. And the general strategy was in the low risk group, and it's mainly here paratesticular rhabdo, ambulatory rhabdo localized. You will give very few chemotherapy. In this group, you will give the maximum of chemotherapy. In this group, the standard risk, you will give the standard therapy. And in this group, you may propose to increase the treatment. So the high risk group were patients who were supposed to have 60% of expected outcome. So we were not happy about the 60. We say, okay, it's not enough. We will try to give more chemotherapy in this group. Remember that the standard arm is IVA in Europe. In North America, the standard arm is VAC, vincristine, actinomycin, cyclophosphamide. In Europe, it's exactly the same, but it's not VAC, it's IVA, ifosfamide, vincristine, actinomycin. Okay? So this was the EPSSG RMS05 overall strategy. All the risk groups were there according to 8 subgroups, and we defined the risk according to the pathology. We have talked about that. It was the morphology and the immunochemistry. Of course, could be helped by the molecular biology, but it was not mandatory. The resectability and the expansion of the tumor. This was a protocol for localized tumor only. Metastatic patients were in another protocol. The site, favorable site or unfavorable locations. The presence or absence of nodal involvement. And if you have an embryonal nodal tumor, you were on the group F. If you have an alveolar nodal tumor, you were on the group H. And altogether, the size more than 5 centimeters and the age more than 10. We know that large tumor and older patients do worse. So they were considered to be unfavorable if they have more than 10 years, if they were more than 10 years, or if they have more a tumor larger than 5. So we have tried to increase the survival of patients in the high-risk group. Okay. Here, once again, we did VA, small amount of chemotherapy, and we have seen, I have not shown today, but the result is more than 90% of survival. So here, survival is correct. Here is the standard arm, 9% IVA. Here, intensification, but the question was here. This is 50% of all the patients that has embryonal in unfavorable site, that have embryonal plus nodal involvement or have localized alveolar N0 tumors. And this patient has something like 60% of EFS. So in this group, when we analyze this tumor, we consider that 60% of them had a chance to be cured. So we have decided to increase the treatment. So where we were, we already knew in the previous North American protocol that VAC plus VAC and DOXO were compared and were exactly the same. In the high-risk-free study, they tried to compare VAC plus IVA compared versus IVA versus ifosfamide vincristine etoposide. So this is to see if the European IVA was better than the North American VAC. And the result was exactly the same. So we can confirm that if you want to give VAC to your patient, it's a good thing. If you want to give IVA to your patient, it's a good thing. The outcome is exactly the same. VAC is more gonadotoxic, VAC is less expensive, and IVA is more nephrotoxic, and probably IVA is a little bit more expensive because you need to hospitalize your patient here, and sometimes you could do a VAC in a daycare outpatient situation. So it's exactly the same for the patient. So it's only a question of philosophy. Do you want to have renal toxicity or do you want to have gonadal mutagenic toxicity on adult care? So if you have a contraindication of VAC because your patient has a risk, I don't know, you don't want to give VAC, you can give IVA. If you don't want to give IVA, you can give VAC. It's exactly the same. They have compared different strategy, and every time the answer was VAC should be the standard because if you compare VAC to other things, it's exactly the same. And in Europe, we have done the same, but of course with IVA. And when we have compared, this was the Italian German group, VAIA versus Civaia. Civaia is 6 drugs. This is carboplatin, this is etoposide, in addition to IVA drugs. The answer was exactly the same. So more was not better. In rhabdo, when you have increased the number of drugs, at the end, every protocol showed that it was exactly the same. In the Sarcoma group, we have analyzed 9 groups of VACs, of IVA, versus 6 drug arm. So it was a more intensive therapy, and we hope that it may increase the survival. The answer was no. So once again, we go back and say 9 drug is not better than 3, so only 3 could be enough. So the conclusion of all these studies, and more that I haven't shown here, is VAC or IVA for all high-risk rhabdo remains the standard therapy. So the North American have tried to increase again and compare VAC to VAC plus VI. VI was vincristine irinotecan. And what was the answer? Exactly the same. It's over the same story in the rhabdos. It's easy to remember. VAC is exactly the same as VAC plus VI. But that conclusion was, okay, it's the same, but in this arm, you have less cyclophosphamide. So you have less gonadal toxicity drug, and you have less cyclophosphamide, so you may have less mutagenic drug. Because you know that cyclo is mutagenic and cyclo could be gonadal, having toxicity on the gonad. So they decide to take this arm as a standard. not because this arm was better, but probably because this arm will lead to less long-term effect. So it's another way to interpret this result, to say, okay, we have a good result, but we made a change just to avoid long-term toxicity. So in the European group, our question was, again, could we give more chemotherapy to increase survival? So we had the standard arm with 9 courses of IVA, and we decided to add doxorubicin, because doxorubicin is a very active drug in rhabdo. We know that it works. We know that if you give doxorubicin, you may have tumor reduction. So it's an active drug, but does it increase survival? It was the question. So we have made a protocol comparing 9 courses of IVA versus 4 courses of IVA plus 5 courses of IVA. The aim here was to see if giving more drug here, more toxic regimen, could improve survival. So we have randomized 485 patients in both arms, and this is the answer. The answer, once again, was best, more is not better. The survival was exactly the same. So you should not give IVADO to your patient, even high-risk patient, because it not increase survival. It's exactly the same as IVA. And moreover, IVADO is more toxic. You have more mucositis, you have more fibrinogen, you have more toxicity, that's one system toxicity. You will have more cardiac toxicity and so on. So we go back and say, IVADO is not the standard is IVA. So does doxorubicin add something in the multi-drug regimen? The answer was no. So other question was to give maintenance therapy. Why maintenance therapy? Because sometimes we know that we have relapse after the end of the therapy in rhabdos, and we can think that it may be due to some small residual cells, just like in leukemias, that are somewhere in the body that you cannot pick when you do CT, bone CT, full body or MRI and so on, and that explains some late relapse. And so we have analyzed the pattern of relapse of our patient, and when you analyze this is the relapse in our protocol, and the time of the relapse according to the months. And what we can see is 90% of the tumor events, so I mean 90% of the relapse, occur after the end of the therapy. So it means that probably there is a small cell somewhere on the primary, on the bone, on the leg, we don't know where, somewhere, that explains the recurrence of the disease. So the question was, is it interesting to give something after the 9 courses of chemotherapy? Not intensify the treatment and give more course during the induction therapy, but give, just like in leukemias, some maintenance therapy for something like 6 months. We have decided this. So the second part of the protocol was to randomize after the 9 courses of chemotherapy and the local therapy, patients who receive nothing. We stop the treatment and we say, okay, it was experiment, the standard arm, versus 6 months of oral, vinorelbine, intravenous vinorelbine, and oral cyclophosphamide. So there were 2 arms. One arm, experimental arm, was with maintenance, and one arm without any maintenance therapy. So why we decide to do this? Because we know that cyclophosphamide is active in rhabdo. It's an easy way to give this drug. You can give it orally, so it's easy to deliver this study, and so on. So it's known to have a metronomic activity in other brain tumor protocol, and so on. We already know that vinorelbine was active in rhabdos. This is to study analyzing the efficacy of vinorelbine intravenous in a relapsed patient, and you can see that there were some response. So we already knew that vinorelbine was active alone or with cyclophosphamide. And we defined to build such a maintenance therapy with oral continuous cyclo, which means that the patient at home drink at the morning 1 dose of cyclophosphamide. It's a very small dosage, 25 milligrams per meter square. So the pharmacy prepares some oral syringe, and the patient has 1 month of treatment. When they come to Curie, they go to the pharmacy, they take 1 month of small 30 dosage of cyclo, and go back home, and come every week on daycare to receive their intravenous injection of vinorelbine. Once again, here it's a small dosage. So it was supposed to be 6 cycles, 1 month, so 3 out of 4 months of vinorelbine, and continuous during 6 months oral cycle. The tolerance was intermediate because this patient has already received 9 courses of chemotherapy, so we had some time neutropenia, very few febrile neutropenia, and this third injection of vinorelbine was mainly omitted. So most of the patients received, to be honest, only 2 courses of vinorelbine due to hematologic toxicity. But whatever, most of them succeed to finish the 6-month therapy after the 9 course of IV. So there were randomization and so on and so on. 371 patients were randomized after Ivado-Iva, 186 in stop therapy, and 185 were allocated to receive the maintenance vinorelbine cyclo treatment. Most of them really received the treatment, and this was the answer. And this was quite amazing because it was the first time in the medical story when we have done a randomized study in all the world with a difference. So we were very proud to once have a difference when we add something to IVA and to find a difference. And you can see that patient with maintenance therapy has a better disease-free survival, even if the P was a little bit slight, but a very better overall survival. So what was another way to be proud is that look at the overall survival here. We were expected this patient to have only 60% of survival. Of course, they have been a little bit selected because patient may have refused to be in this protocol. Some patient would have had some early progression, but when we compare this number to the previous one, exactly in the same way, the overall survival of this high-risk group, it were supposed to be high-risk patients, were better. The reason why, when we do the statistical analysis, it has been a little bit difficult, but we were very happy for this. So when we saw this result, we immediately changed our mind and said, in 2017, it was last year, the standard therapy for all the high-risk patients should include 6 months of maintenance therapy. And the North American group heard that and include maintenance therapy in some of their group in their protocol immediately. So it was important result. Ivado versus IVA does not change anything, so we go back to IVA. But here we have considered that this result was enough interesting to change totally our way to treat this patient. So for all high-risk patients, we decided to give 6 months of chemotherapy. In the next protocol, I haven't shown you that, in the far RMS next protocol, we will compare 6 months of maintenance therapy versus 1 year to see if 1 year is better than 6 months. And in metastatic patient, we'll compare 1 year versus 2 years. We are crazy, 2 years, but maybe we can proceed. So we are, yes, 1 year, 6 months versus 2 years. So now we have to think why it works. Is it a metronomic effect? Is it because we give more drug and more is better? Is it because you have some action on the immunology and so on? Yes.
Thank you.